So welcome, Ian Layna. Great to see you. Great to have you with us. We're really looking forward to you joining us for the next 3 years. So as we come to this, what are you most looking forward to? Let's start with the next few weeks and then possibly the next few years. What are you looking forward to as we come to this curacy time?
I suppose the first thing is the move. We are moving to a brand new house, brand new place. That's always a little bit exciting. It's kind of good that now we do know where we're going and that kind of stuff. So we have to pack up our house. I'm quite looking forward to beginning full-time ministry. I've had the past month where I've been completely retired. I've done nothing, so it would be quite nice to be actively involved all of my time in just doing whatever God has in store for us.
Yep.
I'm excited that it's nearly our wedding anniversary, so
it
we've
is,
nearly been together 12 months.
A whole year.
A whole year.
We've survived and lockdown.
Yeah, we've managed.
But,
managed.
Yeah, it's exciting to celebrate as well and
It
move
is.
to a new place and grow and learn with new people.
Sounds good. So let's go back a little bit. Where did you grow up and what's your sort of journey of faith? How did you get to this point, each of either of you?
Do you want to go first?
Layna.
So I was brought up at St Andrews, which some of you will probably know. John Armstrong was previously there. That's
Over in
St. Andrews.
Overholton.
Overholton.
Yep.
So I was brought up there my whole life, and then I went off to university and went to train to be a vet at Edinburgh. When I was up there, I joined a Baptist church, and that's where I really grew in my faith and made a stand for myself, and started doing like one-to-one Bible studies with an older girl, and that really challenged and grew my faith for myself, away from my parents. I then came back to St Andrews, where I felt God was calling me to go back to after wobbles of where to move after uni life. Loved being back at St Andrews.
Brilliant.
What else? I don't even know what the question was anymore.
Ian, so where did you grow up and what was your background?
So I grew up probably a mile down the road from Layna's house. We actually got on the same bus to Cannon Slade for 2 years, no memory of each other whatsoever. I remember your sister, because she was in the same year as my sister, but no memory of each other other than that. I went to a little Methodist church in Bolton, but then got to be in about 15 and decided that Christianity was for idiots and stupid people. I, of course, wasn't either of those things, so abandoned the faith completely, and then had between 15 and 25, just went to college, went to university, and was just incredibly badly behaved and wanted absolutely nothing to do with faith whatsoever. Then I got to being 25, I'd kind of started sort of real adult life and started asking questions and what I wanted from my life, and found that there was something that was missing, and then kind of hit a crisis point really, and then found a book called Orthodoxy by G.K. Chesterton, and I read the introduction and the first 2 chapters, and it ruined me forever, because immediately I could see that there was something living and active in this guy's life that was missing from mine. And then it kind of went from there. I read book after book after book, and then in that time things where I lived in Manchester for university kind of fell apart. I moved back to Bolton, and then after a year or so of just kind of thinking and reading, I was like, I think I'm ready to go back to church, but I don't want to go back to the church that I was brought up in. I think if I've made a decision to do this, I need to be going somewhere where I'm only there because I've made this decision. And then the only other person that I knew that went to church was my friend Adam, so I tapped him on the shoulder and said, can I come with you on Sunday? And then I went to St Andrews in Overholton, and I've been there ever since, and it's grown and grown and grown.
And so when you tapped Adam on the shoulder and said, can I come with you to church, was he utterly shocked and thought, what on earth's going on here? Or had you been having conversations along the way that this made sense to?
Probably about a year before I went back is when Adam went back to church. And he remembers none of this, and I think he's been a little bit gracious with me, but he took me to the pub in Manchester when I was still in my bad phase, and we had a couple of pints, and he told me, I think I'm about to become a Christian. I think I want to go back to church. I spent the rest of the evening ridiculing him mercilessly, telling him this is the worst decision of your entire life. I'm happy to say he's now curate at Christ Church, Pennington. So It all worked out.
You can't help feeling that God has a real sense of humour in these people who are so adamantly,
most definitely,
clearly, I don't want to have anything to do with the church, are now thoroughly involved in both curates.
Yes, it is.
There we go.
It's quite good fun.
Excellent.
It's quite good fun.
my other question there, so next question I suppose was, where and how did you meet each other? You were both
At St Andrews.
St Andrews over
At
Holton.
St
There we go.
Andrews.
Yeah, I thought
So,
about that.
for the first couple of years that I was there, really, Layna was just at vet school, so we didn't really know each other, because when you're being a vet, you're spending your summer times and that kind of stuff
Yeah, I was really
all
home.
over the place.
Yeah.
During the first couple of years, I kind of grew, and then was invited to lead house groups and do that kind of stuff. So by the time Layna moved back, I was doing a lot of like the young adult stuff, and then Layna kind of came along to that. She came to our house group. I remember she gave me all sorts of grief about the Q source, and I thought, oh, this is interesting.
We'll come back to the Q source. Another
Yes,
time,
that's for another day.
if that's all right.
That's for another day. But I thought, oh, well, this is interesting. And then we kind of got to know each other, got talking. Then we were just friends for a few years first, weren't we?
Yeah.
And then 2018, 17, right at the very end of 2017, we finally got together. And then it's kind of grown from there, hasn't it?
Brill. And happily married for nearly a year.
Nearly a year. Nearly a year.
So it's all good.
Yeah.
And right, so from there, work background. Well, we know that Layna is doing vet things, and you're still working as a vet now.
Yeah.
Definitely doing farm vet bits.
Yeah.
Travelling around the area on account of the farms don't come to you very much.
Yeah. So I cover the whole of Greater Manchester, so I'm round about everywhere, often in Hawkshaw, Holcombe, Ramsbottom, but I cover a massive area, so all the way down to Maudsley, Lymm in Warrington, up to Blackburn and across to Diggle, so pretty big area.
Good, eh? And Ian, what did you end up doing work-wise before you come into?
Yeah, I did a bit of a few things, really. I think until this point, really, I've never actually known what I wanted to do. So it was always kind of what job suits next. So after I finished university, I did 2 jobs. I carried on working at the cinema, which was my student job, evenings and weekends, and I did 9 to 5 as an administrator for the University of Manchester. Then I decided after about a year of that 2 jobs is probably a little bit too much. So got my first proper job. I worked in accounts payable, so I did some finance type stuff for a plant hire company. And then probably about halfway through my time there, they put in a new computer system, and I got involved in that kind of process. And then after a few years there, I decided I needed a change. Happened to fill out my CV, and someone at an agency spotted it and said, oh, you've done stuff with this computer system, would you like to do this kind of stuff for a living? And I did that for the past 5 years, so it's been a bit of a mix of stuff, really.
Sounds, yes, interesting.
Yeah, it was a good fit. It was a good fit for the time that I needed it to be, and like work that I've just had, they were brilliant with me. They were so flexible in terms of like giving me time to train and all that kind of stuff. It's been good.
So from there, why ordination?
I suppose really the more I got invited to do things in the church that began to felt more like ministry and less just like helping out, the more that kind of began to be the thing that I cared the most about. So when it even came down to making career decisions, the field I was in, a lot of the jobs involved travel and that kind of stuff, and I always had to say to work, I don't think that's the life that I want, because all the stuff that I care about it's in Overholton, it's what I do at church. So as it grew, you kind of get invited to try different bits and pieces out, and I kind of got comfortable doing a house group, but I was always absolutely adamant that you would never ever get me at the front of a church doing anything. So I said, I will never do a reading, I'll certainly never do a service or a sermon or anything like that. But then after we went on the trip to the Holy Land in 2014, where we met.
That's where we met, wasn't it? Yes, 2014 trip to Holy Land,
yes.
Which was the Manchester Darson pilgrimage.
It was.
With
many
Bishop of
moons
Manchester,
ago. Yeah.
Bishop of Bolton, then was Chris
Edmondson.
It
was.
And Mark. Bishop Mark was there as well, I think.
Yes, it was. I think of the small handful of people who were on that trip who weren't ordained at the time, 4 are now ordained or about to be. So it was quite a fruitful trip in the end. But after that, Adam, who was on that trip as well, me and him got invited to do a service in the evening as the kind of, what was the pilgrimage kind of like? So we did that, and I thought, well, that went okay. And then we were invited to do a Lent course, which we did. And I was like, well, a small room full of people for a Lent course, that's not a proper sermon, that's fine, that's okay. But then a few people said, well, maybe it's time to try it. I was like, I don't want to do that. So went home and prayed and just knew absolutely certainly that it was time to get ready to practice preaching and that kind of stuff. So for 6 months, me and my very, very patient friend Rob used to let ourselves into St Andrews, and I would preach to him in an empty church for 6 months. But it would take me 45 minutes to calm down just to do that. And then I got tapped on the shoulder a few months later when John was on holiday, and he said, it's probably time to actually do one of these for real, isn't it? So I did, and it kind of grew from there. And then I started doing some services. And then it was really after John went on sabbatical for a few months that it kind of grew, and I thought, well, maybe there's something more to this. It feels like this is the part of my life that is growing. And the more I sort of thought about it, the more I thought, well, maybe that is the direction God wants to lead me. And then John came back from sabbatical, and he said, the second week he was back, he called me into the vestry and said, do you think it's probably time that we think about ordination? And it went from there, really. It's been a blessing ever since.
So what do the next few months hold for you as we navigate coronavirus?
It's a good question, really, isn't it? It's a good question.
I don't know is probably
I think
the
that is the big
biggest,
answer, isn't it?
which most people won't know, in all areas of every bit of life. We don't know at all, do we?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most uncertain season that we've ever had in a lot of ways. I think everything is up in the air, and in some ways it is a time of opportunity as well. I think this will give some real opportunities to look at what do we need, what do we want to do. Is there anything that we want to stop doing? Is there anything we want to start afresh? I think it's a good time to really, sort of learn again almost how to listen to what God wants us to do in the kind of direction that he wants to lead us in, rather than just saying, this is what we usually do, so let's just do that. I think it's a good moment to pause and reflect and, I don't know, take a rest, I suppose. It's almost like a Sabbath kind of time in that kind of respect.
The plan is for you to be ordained in Michaelmas, that sort of
September kind of time is what we think we're aiming for.
Yes. So hopefully then the bishop will be allowed to get close enough to you to lay a hand on your head and
we
give you an
don't know what
ordination.
that's going to look like. We assume it's going to be socially distant for the apart from the moment when the bishop has to lay on the hands. It's going to be a little strange.
Yeah, that will be different. Are there any particular areas we can be praying for you for in the sort of next few weeks particularly?
I think moving over and getting settled would be good. I think kind of what we said, that we would find the time amongst the busyness of moving and getting settled, that we would feel that real sense that this is exactly where we're called to be, and that we would be paying attention for whatever it is that God wants us to do. I think is key, really. I think, yeah.
Layna, anything that you...
I think engaging into the community here in a time when nobody's engaging is going to be a thing. We don't know anyone around here really, other than Paul. So yeah, how we get to know you guys and grow together at a distance is going to be a challenge.
We'll try and work out some ways of just being able to connect with people, and as lockdown begins to sort of decrease, then it may be possible that people might be up for having you visit them in the garden or something like that.
Yes, I can bring my own chairs and everything, yes.
You bring your own chair even.
Yes.
In fact, I noticed in your new house that there was some in the garden just
exactly
left behind by the previous occupants. So
they can be put to good use.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk, to share a bit about your background and past, and we will be praying for you in the weeks, months, years ahead, and praying for God to be at work through you both as you come to Holcombe and Hawkshaw. So a very big welcome from us all.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.